So should we go back to the very beginning?
Yeah, sure.
And move forward. You know, in the originating myth, it's that there were three people first: Michael Schamberg, Alan Rucker, and Megan Williams.
And myself.
And then you were number four.
Yes. Well,
Can you tell me how you became part of that essential early group?
well,
Where was your connection to them?
four of us were the TVTV founders because I'll have to back up a little further. I was part of a group called Ant Farm.
Mm-hmm.
And which at the time the core members of Ant Farm were Doug Michaels, Chip Lord, and myself,
Mm-hmm.
and a guy named Curtis Schreier.
Mm-hmm.
And Chip and Doug and I lived together in a warehouse studio space in Sausalito, California. And one day we got a visitor from New York, a guy named Frank Gillette, who was part of a scene called Rain Dance, which was Michael and Ira Schneider. And this Frank Gillette showed up, and he had a Portapack, this device that we'd never seen before. And he showed up and he showed us this thing, and well, we looked inside the camera, and I looked in there and I saw a little tiny TV set, and that was the end. That was it. We went, oh my God, we can make TV. And we were TV babies. We were like TV junkies. So this was kind of the end of architecture and performance art, and a lot of other things started to fade. And inflatable structures, a lot of things went by the wayside. And now Valhalla was television.
Yeah.
We had it right in our hands. We could make television. It was amazing. So then we had to get a Portapack, and we had to get tape. So we figured out a way to trade architectural and design work and lectures on a kind of a lecture circuit to art school for video equipment. So that's what we started doing.
So this would have been 1969, 70?
Yes, 69, 70, somewhere in there. I'm hazy on years. I've got real, very good memory of things that took place. I've got almost photographic memory, an audio memory of quotes, places, things, and visual details too. But as far as years go, boy, I'm really bad at that. I'm pretty bad at that. But so I don't know, 69, 70, somewhere in there, yeah. Not 68.
Yeah.
69 or 70. So anyway, somewhere in there. So we had one videotape. We didn't have a lot of videotape. We had one videotape, 1.5 hour tape. So we would have to edit in the camera. We'd shoot something, and then we'd look at it back, and we'd go, oh, keep that piece. And then we'd shoot another piece, and we'd erase that. What we did was we started sending tapes around the country to other people who had Portapacks. And this tape would go to somebody in Chicago, and they would put something on the tape too. Then they would send that to somebody. Then they would send it to New York, and we'd get that. So this tape would go around the country and get little different pieces put on it, and we'd view it at dinner.
Yeah. I remember there was a correspondence, I think maybe even between you and Michael Schamberg, that Ant Farm was sending back and forth.
Yeah, we sent back and forth to Rain Dance to Michael. So Michael got a book deal from Holt, Reinhardt, and Winston to do a book that he wrote, which became quite a Guerrilla Television was the name of the book. And it became like this little nest egg of Guerrilla Television.
Yeah, sure.
Kind of a how-to book. It was the Volkswagen repair book of Portapack people. How to start a revolution with your own Portapack. So we illustrated the book. Michael asked if Ant Farm came out to Sausalito and asked Ant Farm to illustrate the book, lay out the book. So we set to work on that. and that's how we met Michael.
Mm-hmm.
So Michael then decides to leave New York and come out, and he and Megan come out and ask Alan Rucker from the Portola Institute and from Stuart Brand's organization to join, and ask me to join too from Ant Farm.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how that came about. So it was Michael and Megan, Alan Rucker, and myself.
And did you know Alan Rucker already at this point?
Yes, because Alan, they had a porta pack. And so they would come down from, they were in, they were at Stanford. Alan was teaching at Stanford at the time. And so he would come down from Stanford and we would shoot tape, and we did some events together too. We did some events with people from the Whole Earth Truck Store. We did some events in the desert, and Alan and a guy named Pat Crowley, who, by the way, right now is producing the biggest movie being shot in the world under COVID-19 requirements, is the dinosaur movie, Spielberg's new dinosaur movie.
Oh, okay.
That's where Pat is now.
Mm-hmm.
He's producing that movie. And Alan and Pat would come down, and we would shoot tape, and we would shoot tape out in the desert and do these events, Whole Earth Truck Store events. So yeah, we do.
And I remember, I don't remember the year, but Ant Farm did the slumber party.
Oh yeah, we had
at the Sausalito space, I think.
Sausalito Art Center. The Sausalito Art Center, by the way, sounds like some kind of slick thing. It was basically the crafts area for the local elementary school. We did a thing called a video slumber party, where we asked people from all over the Bay Area to come bring their tape and show tape. We spent the night there. Somehow we talked the Sausalito Elementary School into letting us hippies spend the night there, and it worked okay. We had a lot of interesting tape, and a lot of interesting people came out of the woodwork.
Yeah. So Michael and Megan move out this way, and then the four of you kind of create the core. Were you in on the decision to actually make the first project the Democratic and Republican conventions?
Yes. Because, you know, we talked amongst ourselves about what project should we do, and we should take something that was of national importance. And there were so many things that we thought could be of national importance. At the time, we thought Cuba might be one thing. And Michael had talked about Cuba, and I had been interested in going to Cuba, and that got dashed right away. But the conventions were coming up, and we were on to the conventions pretty heavily because we were such TV junkies, and we'd been watching the campaign, and Nixon was such a presence in all of our lives then. You remember how big Nixon was, and how big the Democrats were, that we had to get something to counteract Nixon. Nixon was the devil, and we had to do something to counteract Nixon, not unlike our situation.
Yeah.
So it was just natural that the Democratic convention and the Republican convention would be the thing that we could go after. And Michael had the idea to get funding from contacts in New York, from the cable company there, Sterling Manhattan. And so that's where he went. And we got seed money from Sterling Manhattan. I'm looking at the name of the place. So yeah, the four of us discussed that and decided on that.
And can you recall how Tom Weinberg was pulled into this group?
Well, you know, it's interesting. Tom was in Chicago, and I think Michael knew Tom.
Okay, because he was certainly in Chicago himself.
Yeah. And so I talked to Tom yesterday, as a matter of fact. Michael knew Tom, and I think Michael brought Tom into this I think that Tom was asked to fund some of this with his family foundation. And I don't know if he did or not, really, tell you the truth. The four of us knew that we couldn't do this project alone. This is a huge undertaking. So we split up duties and started, we have one typewriter. We have one electric. I think we decided we needed to rent one more. So that's electric, and that liquid correction paper. We had a ton of whiteout, and we had a ton of whiteout, and before Kinko's, we had a copy shop, and we worked that typewriter, and we worked a list of contacts to raise money and to try everything we could. So we were pretty much stressed to the gills, and I don't remember quite how Tom came into it, other than it was Michael's friend from Chicago.
Yeah.
And
because
Tom,
certainly he was, what did you call him? The point man? He went down to Miami first?
Yeah, he went down to Miami. That's how he got his nickname Score. Because he went down to find a house.
Yeah.
And he found a house, and I think over the telephone, either talked to Michael or to Alan, and said, I got us a house, because we needed to house all these people that we had recruited from all the video groups around the country to come help us in this massive attack on the Democratic convention. We need to get a big house. And Score Weinberg found the house. Tom found it, and over the telephone said, I scored. Score. Tom, Score Weinberg.
So with the recruiting of all of the video freaks, was there an organized process, or was it, if you can make it down there with a camera, you're welcome?
That was more like it. We could get come down with a camera. We'll have a place we'll provide all the we'll provide where to sleep, where to bed down. Come on down with that per diem money, a place to sleep, and all the tape you can shoot.
There was actually a per diem?
Also, yeah, there was a per diem, but walking around money, and $15. I don't know. You realize we were basically hippies.
Yeah.
We had credit cards. That was kind of, it's funny. That was kind of our image to outside people. I learned later that people thought of us as like hippies with credit cards. And we did have credit cards, and we maxed out those credit cards every month, just squeaking by. We'd finance TVTV on Amex and MasterCard.
Yeah.
And
so that's how you got to eat at Wolfie's.
Yeah, Wolfie's Celebrity Corner, 21st and Collins. On now, no more Wolfie's. I still have postcards from Wolfie's. Yeah. But anyway, that's how we got people to come. We told them all the tape they could shoot, and we had beds.
And you supplied something else.
Oh, we had dope too. They had all the dope they could smoke.
One of the they transferred about 425 tapes, so there's several hundred hours of source footage.
And you looked at that. You looked at that footage.
I've looked at the footage for World's Largest TV Studio in 4 more years. I haven't looked at Gerald Ford's America yet.
Oh, don't.
But other people have.
Good. I wouldn't subject you to Gerald Ford's America. Adland is pretty good. You should look at Adland.
They did not do Adland, although I think we have the tapes for Adland, but it was decided that it would be the more politically, overtly political tapes.
Political pieces, yeah.
But in that source footage, one of the things that everybody has always prized when they come across it are there's one lengthy story you tell about trying to buy nitrous oxide.
Oh yeah, that was a good one. We were nitrous oxide is when you're young, it's a very funny drug. It's laughing gas,
Mm-hmm.
but it's NO2. It's not. It's what they give you at the dentist to numb you. When it's mixed with oxygen, it's an anesthetic,
Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't make you laugh. I don't know where that comes from. The laughing gas part. I think that was an early way to sell it. It's like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
this makes you laugh. But it works well at the dentist. I always ask for nitrous oxide. But I first encountered nitrous oxide with the Grateful Dead in the 60s, in that there was always a tank around. There was always a tank of gas. The airplane always had a big tank of gas. The Dead had a big tank of gas. And the hog farm always had a big tank of gas. But the tank that you wanted to have was called an E-tank. And it was a little tank. It was about it's about three feet long. It's one you could carry.
Mm-hmm.
And to get nitrous oxide, it's a prescribed drug, and you could get it at the dental supply place, or you could get it at a welding supply, because the tanks get filled.
Mm-hmm.
And it has two uses. Nitrous oxide is used at the dentist's office, and it's used in the manufacture of whipped cream. So if you go to the grocery store, you'll see the real whipped cream, Cool Whip, which is, I'm not Cool Whip. Yeah, it was a Cool Whip. I don't know which one is the real whipped cream that has cream in it instead of cocoa, is powered by nitrous oxide. For some reason, that gives it its lift. Well, in order to get a tank of nitrous oxide, you have to have the tank. It's a catch-22. You can get it filled anywhere if you have a tank. That means you obviously have the authority to get it filled. So it's hard to get that tank. Once you have a tank, you're golden. You can get it filled. So Rucker and I were in downtown Miami Beach doing something, running some errands during the Democratic Convention. And we're right next to an old person. There's a lot of old people in Miami Beach. And we're right next to an old person medical supply store. And in the window is a nitrous E-tank. And I said, maybe they're selling this E-tank. So I went in, and there were a couple of old ladies in there, nice old ladies. And I said, hey, is that tank in the window for sale? And she said, oh, yes, it is. I said, how much do you want for it? I need one of those. And she said, $25. So I took my per diem and the next day's per diem, and I put it down on that tank. And we had a tank. Well, we looked up welding supplies in the yellow pages. Remember those?
Mm-hmm.
We looked up welding supplies, went to a welding supply, walked up, said, I need a fill. And they'll exchange a tank with you. And you have to have a story for the welding supply guys, because they'll look at you. Because I had really long hair then. I had hair like halfway down my back. So they look askance and say, huh, what's this? And I said, well, we're whipped cream artists. We're here in town. We're doing a whipped cream artist event. And that always worked out pretty well. You tell them you're a whipped cream artist. They go, what's a whipped cream artist? They say, well, we get huge stock tanks that they feed cows out on ranches. We have a stock tank full of heavy cream. Then we put the nitrous down in there with a tube, and it turns into whipped cream, and the kids go wild. That's all the rednecks needed to know was there's whipped cream, and kids go wild. That was enough their imagination to just go, oh, okay, great. Where is this party going to be? And we'd tell them, oh, it's in an art gallery. And they would go, oh, that's great. And we'd always get a fill that way. So we showed up back at TVTV World Headquarters in Star Island or wherever it was where we had this house. That was Augie Bush's Miami Beach house or something like that. With an E-tank. We were heroes, I tell you. Filled balloons balloons up with nitrous oxide and just pass them around. So people would come in hot and sweaty into the air-conditioned cold. They would put their equipment down and hit that nitrous oxide and pass out. It was fun. We had a good time. There was no reason to be doing what we were doing and not have a good time.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we all decided a long time before we came to being video freaks and TVTV people. We'd all decided that we wanted to have a good time. Whatever it was we didn't like, we were going to have a good time doing it. And we did. And that night just helped out.
Mm-hmm.
And I think today that E-Tank, I lost track of it. It was in Paul Goldsmith's garage.
Oh, okay.
Goldsmith's garage. And he moved, and I think it got lost. And I've always been embarrassed to ask him, "Oh, Goldsmith, do you have that E-Tank?"
Mm-hmm. So I'd like to go back again to in a sense, to Rain Dance.
Yes.
Because it's something I've talked with Alan and Megan about and Michael about. You know, if you're like me and you're on the outside of all of this, you look at Rain Dance, then Radical Software, then Guerrilla Television, and then the obvious next step was TVTV, at least to me, that certain ideas about intervening in media were developed through Radical Software and Guerrilla Television, and then it was time to have kind of feet on the ground and try it out. And but there seemed to be differing opinions about the continuity of that. For example, I think that Megan and Alan felt that they weren't interested in just replicating a kind of hippie-esque project. They wanted to do a kind of serious, they wanted to become serious program providers, but with a different attitude about the material. But there was still a kind of structure around it that they wanted to be in control of, that it was, you know, it wasn't a hippie spontaneity that was going to drive this, but a little organization called TVTV, and that would, as we all know, eventually move to LA, produce other programs, but always keeping in mind a kind of broader audience, not thinking about Lanesville or, you know, a very pointed little community.
Yeah. Well, I agree with Alan and Megan about that. Now that's the way I wanted to go too. I just thought that we could make television as opposed to the hippie TV, which was Lanesville,
Mm-hmm.
which was, although I dearly loved Bart Friedman and David Court and Skip Blumberg, but what the TV that they made was to show the farmer down the road. And I wanted to show TV to the world. I wanted to do what we were doing to show the world. And to do that, you had to make a structure. You had to work within some structure. I thought you could do that with a real sense of humor. I don't think you had to be so deadly serious or didactic about it. But I think you had to do it with a sense of humor. And I think Alan, Megan, and Michael and I all shared that same sense of humor. Michael on one end and me on another, and Megan and Alan in the middle. I think that came out in a lot of the things that we wanted to do. We, for instance, I don't think we would have ever come up with a standard talk show format. I don't think we tried to say, okay, we're going to do a talk show, but we're going to do it better. I don't think we ever had that discussion.
Yeah.
Although I know a lot of people did. I know that we came up with the idea of having a VJ before MTV did. I know that. And we tried that once, you know, where we did a kind of a demo reel of somebody playing TVTV tapes on a deck. know, greatest hits of TVTV. But I think that we all wanted to do shows that lended itself to a documentary style shooting to put over an idea of a program that could be replicated. Like I think Alan and I wanted to do a show called Free Lunch, where we would take people to lunch. At that time, we were in San Francisco. We'd take Francis Ford Coppola to lunch at Enrico's Cafe in North Beach.
Mm-hmm.
We would eat lunch with a couple of cameras and just have lunch with somebody in a format that was just loose. It was called Free Lunch. And so you would just have people eating lunch.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's the kind of TV that I wanted to make and that Alan wanted to make too. It wasn't so self-serious, but you did get to see people off the cuff in a very informal way.
Mm-hmm.
I did not want to make TV. I didn't want to make 60 Minutes.
Yeah.
Although I think we could have made a better 60 Minutes without it being a hippie 60 Minutes.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we ever really, at least I never had those thoughts.
Now, when you look at the footage from the Democratic and Republican convention, there is enormous amounts of number of sequences that never found their way into the finished documentaries, but what they're looking at is quite different than the final aims of the docs. For instance, there's a lot of time spent looking at the enormity of the undertaking that the networks did.
Yeah.
So you'd go into the trailers where they had, big switching boards and flow charts and all these discussions with the camera crews down on the convention floor who are burdened with hundreds of pounds of hardware, and you're sitting there with your 25 pounds of stuff. And it's almost as though you could make 2 or 3 additional documentaries out of that same footage.
Well, we were blown away by the amount of money that they threw at the convention. Plus, we had all watched conventions all of our lives. I remember watching a Republican convention when I was like a toddler. Eisenhower convention or something like that in '54 maybe, or something like that. I remember these conventions. I knew what big, huge things they were. I never quite understood how they worked. I never really cared how they worked. I just was in there for the spectacle of it, So when we got to Miami and I saw what a spectacle it was, that's why we were so, that's why we could make an entire show of what the networks were up to, how incredible they did this narrow casting on, so many small points. I mean, they threw everything in the kitchen sink at it, I mean, they had cameras everywhere. They had more anchor people. They had more reporters. They had more, and the amount of equipment was amazing. The amount of cable, I think maybe it was John J. O'Connor in the New York Times who said, or maybe it was a San Francisco reporter a critic who said of our coverage of the Democratic Convention, said that we made our show, which was better than the convention coverage by NBC and CBS and ABC, we made it for less than their coffee budget.
Mm-hmm.
It's true, because we made it for $60,000, and I know they spent more than $60,000 on coffee. And it was bad coffee too.
Uh-huh.
I had it; it sucked. But we were the media covering the media. There was no doubt about that. But we were fascinated by those people. And I mean, it shows. I mean, a classic example of Skip Bloomberg talking to Roger Mudd, and
Mhm.
4 more years. I mean, we couldn't. That was just that was gold.
Yeah, yeah.
It just,
And of course, Skip's interview with Walter Cronkite,
yes,
where
yeah,
Walter seems off guard.
yeah,
You know,
right. Never saw that.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I think that but we were so fascinated by those people that and everything they did. We were fascinated with their cameras and whatnot. You know, later on when we went to Washington for the TVTV bureau, we had a neon sign made. We put in our window in DuPont Circle in our office that said TVTV Washington Bureau. We, we, uh, we ran into the CBS crew who was just going to videotape for the first time. Cronkite's crew went to videotape.
hmm
It was a big Ikegami camera, and it was like we were already miles past that. And those guys were so jealous of our little stuff. And we were so jealous of their like broadcast quality big stuff, you know, that we had
yeah.
each other like a couple of dogs. Well, we did that at those conventions too.
Yeah, because they were carrying not only the big Ikegamis, but 1-inch decks.
Yeah, they were carrying. Yeah. Oh, they had 2-inch decks. They had 2-inch decks.
Portable decks?
They had a 2-inch deck, then an Ampex 2-inch deck, a 2-inch deck. It didn't last long, but I saw one. Then they got the 1-inch deck. They put it in the back of a station wagon, and they hooked up the telco lines.
Uh-huh.
Hooked up the telco lines. Alan and I went to the Patty Hearst when Patty was with the SLA. Her dad came out there in Atherton, California. Our dad came out every day to a press conference to talk. Well, Patty's not home yet, but we're holding out. You know, and there was a press scrum with the pack every day there at Atherton. So Al and I took a porta pack and went over there a couple of times, and we found the CBS crew there with a station wagon with a deck in the back and Ikegami, a long cable and a microphone cable and a shotgun mic. And they had 2 lines that went up to the telephone wires. we were jealous. We're going, my God, look, they're going straight to Cronkite.
So whatever happened to that Patty Hearst footage?
God knows. I mean, there's so much footage. I mean, there was a piece of footage that I shot of a friend of mine named Professor Longhair that I just rediscovered.
The piano player?
The piano player, which I rediscovered. I found him again in New Orleans in 1969. And that piece of tape was lost. A half hour of him playing. It was lost. It turned up in Bart Friedman's barn in Woodstock, New York.
Yes, I remember that.
In one of those Sony tape boxes. It's been in a barn for 40 years. It showed up and Tom Weinberg redigitized it for me. So there's lost tape can be found anywhere. God knows where that Atherton tape is of like, I guess, was that Randall? I don't know what Hearst's first name was.
Yeah, which Hearst was it?
Our father, I don't know which Hearst. But he was like, well, Patty, I don't know what she's doing. She's getting hit by Sin-Q or somebody. Who knows? But some terribleness was occurring there with Patty.
Yeah. So back to the conventions. Were you on the floor at the convention?
Oh, yeah.
Were you interviewing, or were you carrying a camera, or were you doing both? Or
I was interviewing, and I also went around and tried to. I went with Ira Schneider, and I went around We went around kind of scouting, looking for outrageous characters. And the convention attracts like professional characters. There would be like Mississippi delegation, and there would be a woman in a bathing suit with a cowboy hat on and high heels, and she would be like the Yahoo from Jackson, Mississippi. It would go, this could be good tape, so we'd alert people to that. So Ira and I did that. So there's a lot of people. There are a lot of people that people wound up on tape, and Rucker and I would also look at Alan and I. We're pretty simpatico in that we. I'm from New Orleans. Alan's from the Southwest, from Oklahoma, and we both have simpatico according to music and country western in particular. So we would look for events that, like, if there was an event that said barbecue, Rucker and I would go cover it. We'd go to the barbecue. Get these events every day. We'd get a list of events that from the convention PR department saying, listen, these are events you could go cover. So Alan and I went to cover George and Tammy Wynette one day. They were at the Wallace rally because Wallace was running. And,
didn't you talk to Tammy Wynette?
Oh, yeah. We talked to Tammy and George. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can Alan tell you that story?
Well, I heard that you actually went up and talked music.
Oh yeah. We went to see Tammy and George. Alan asked, well, we got to go to the park where Tammy and George are. There, we didn't mention to the other TVTV people that in the afternoon that it was for a Wallace rally. We just said, well, George and Tammy, we got to go. They're gonna. We went out to this place. It was late in the afternoon, and there were a bunch of hay bales, and George and Tammy's bus was there. Rucker and I took a bottle of Southern Comfort, and we went up to the bus, knocked on the door, and showed him my credentials and passed this to a guy in the band. So here's a bottle for the band, and we'd like to talk to George and Tammy. We're from cable television. And nobody knew what cable television was, whatever it was. It was like saying we're from WTOV something. So we're from cable television. We'll be over there on that hay bale waiting to talk to them. If they come out, we'd really appreciate it. So Alan and I went and sat in a hay bale. It's about 100 degrees, 100% humidity. And Alan and I just sat there forever, waiting for George and Tammy. And sure shit, they came out of the bus, both of them. Tammy had a big beehive. George's hair was up pretty high, covered in Aquanet, both of them. Both came out. He had on a nudie suit. She had on
a nudie suit. Wow.
He had on a full suit. Yeah, he had a nudie suit on with sparkles and guitars and stuff. And Tammy was looking pretty good. They both, I think, were wearing blue. Both of them wearing blue and matching kind of outfits. And they came out, and Alan was on the camera, and I had the microphone. We start talking to them, and I was talking to Tammy about how her phrasing seemed to me like a lot of Kitty Wells. She had been a Kitty Wells fan, and she was talking, oh yeah, so she's talking about Kitty Wells and everything, and George is kind of going, well, these kids are all right. They know about Kitty Wells. They're not that bad hippies, George was along with George was a little 3 sheets to the wind, and he was going along with everything. Tammy was having a good time talking about Kitty Wells and Patsy Cline, and then George says out of nowhere, says to Alan, "Hey boy, you're standing in an ant pile." Alan looks down and he is standing in a red ant pile. Ants are coming up over his boots. I look down and sure enough, Alan is standing there, and George and Tammy are separating themselves, and that's why Alan is backed up. They're separating themselves, and Alan has to back up to keep them in shot. And they're separating themselves, George and Tammy, further apart because the gnats are coming after their hairspray. And they're pushing the gnats away from each other because it's after the hairspray. And Alan is backed up into a big pile of red ants. George noticed this, so Alan has to get his boots off. So he hands the camera, and he's on the ground getting his boots off, but I have to help him with the camera. So I hand George the camera. I give Tammy the microphone. So now George and Tammy are now shooting Alan and I trying to get his boots off and get the ants off of him. And that's how it ended, with George and Tammy shooting us doing that.
I'll have to look for that. I don't recall seeing that footage.
No, and we don't know where that footage is.
Mm-hmm.
Don't know
So you don't think it's within that 400 tapes?
I think it is. It has to be someplace.
I'll look for it.
Yeah, George Jones, camera operator.
Be a good one to to revive.
That was a fun day. We didn't see Wallace or any of that kind of ugliness that day. We got out of there. The ants had bitten Alan pretty good too.
There's another performance that I loved that I think it's at the Democratic Convention. The convention, I believe, is over, and there's a party outside at the back end of a hotel. So there's like a paved party area or patio area, and then the beach. And the sequence begins with an old gent lip syncing to an Al Jolson song.
Oh, I don't remember that.
And it's a whole gathering of older people. Then when he's done, up to the mic comes Ed Sanders.
Oh, really?
And Ed Sanders sits down on a stool with an auto harp and starts singing this kind of semi-obscene song about Richard Nixon.
Oh, really? I've never seen this.
Oh, okay. I'll try to get a link for you. It's really a riot.
That sounds wonderful. Anything Ed Sanders would do, of course, it would be a riot. I'd never.
Yeah.
I don't know about that. You know, the other story that happened to me was with Ron Kovic,
Mm-hmm.
the Republican convention, which turned out to be a scene in Born on the 4th of July.
Yeah, sure.
I was on the floor. I was going out on the floor when Nixon was being nominated. And Ron Kovic, who was a Vietnam Veterans Against the War, was a man in a wheelchair from war wounds in Vietnam. Ron Kovic was leading Vietnam Veterans Against the War. He had gone on a very long slog with a bunch of vets, a walk, 600-mile walk, I think it was. Mm-hmm. Him in a wheelchair to Miami to protest Nixon and Nixon's nomination. And they had protested outside, and they'd been tear gassed and they'd been beat. And a friend of ours had been making a documentary on the road about them, and had smuggled Ron into the convention center. And Nixon was being nominated, and I was on the floor, and I had given my credentials to Ron Kovic. And he got on the floor of the convention and walked up. He got up without anybody around him. He got up within about 100 feet of Nixon. And when Nixon was being nominated, Nixon stood out there and was doing his thing with his fingers in the air, mm-hmm. and was being nominated. Ron Kovic started screaming. It's a famous scene for Tom Cruise as Ron Kovic screaming, "Stop the war, stop the motherfucking war, stop the war," screaming and yelling. And he was suddenly surrounded by Secret Service and FBI guys and all of a sudden the force and the might of the Republican, like, authoritarian regime. These Nazis were surrounding him, and I thought, oh my God, I'm going to jail, because Ron Kovic is Hudson Marquez at that point. That's what's around his neck. Mm-hmm. I have I've now besmirched the credentials that I've been given. Although this is the last night of the convention and everything, mm-hmm. They're going to come after me. I knew this was the end of my life. I was sure, but they were flummoxed. They had no idea how to deal with this angry man in a wheelchair. They
Mhm.
couldn't deal with it. They just could not deal with it. They didn't know what, they didn't cart him off. They didn't do anything. Ron screamed himself out. They just they ignored him, and they surrounded him. But they
Mm.
didn't cart him out. They didn't do anything.
Yeah.
That was a
Yeah.
really powerful moment. It's a powerful moment in the Republican convention too, in 4 more years.
Hmm. Yeah, it's a great moment. And there's spectacular out outtakes of Kovic.
Yeah, Ron's a pretty powerful guy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's quite something. There's this wonderful footage of Republicans who had come to the convention, got off the bus, and out in the same area, the Vietnam vets were being tear gassed. So to get into the convention, the Republican delegates had to go through the tear gas.
Yes, yes,
And
yes.
it's one of the only places where the perfect choreography of the convention breaks down when
Yeah,
it
yeah,
comes up against the anarchy of the outdoors.
yeah. But and you know how they covered that. I noticed we were out there covering those demonstrations, and we were, of course, on the ground covering the demonstrations, and the networks were on top of their trucks.
Hmm.
That was another big difference. Was the networks have trucks full of technicians and a camera on a pedestal up there, and they have their people up there. They
Yeah,
didn't down there at ground level where you could see the jostling and the fear and what was going on. It was always from up there, And I remember being down in the protest zone where they had it zoned off. So, but today that's really, back then it was actually, like you said, the Republicans getting gas going in. Today, they're miles away. They wouldn't get near anybody.
hmm,
But then it was actually, they came up close against them. But even then, you could tell that they were going to get further and further away. They were going to get pushed into a zone that was just going to be, okay, this is a protest zone. They were pushing them further and further away. And the next day after that gassing, they had moved their barriers further away to where there wasn't any way anybody was going to get close to a protester.
hmm. So another question about the two documentaries side by side. The Democratic convention was rather chaotic. It had all that infighting and all those gatherings about rules. It had all these new constituencies like the feminists and people of color who were
Yeah.
pushing to get into the platform. So it was a very chaotic event. The Republican convention was completely choreographed. It seemed that everything was scheduled and it was kept on schedule. So the two works themselves, 4 more years and world's largest TV studio, they seem to reflect the chaos in one and the control of the other. But at the same time, it seemed that TVTV was getting their chops down during the Democratic convention and then had kind of learned some lessons by the time they get to the Republican convention. So the skill level and the control of the environment seem to be talking to each other.
I think that I know we learned a tremendous amount during the Democratic convention. I mean, my God, we learned what worked technically. I mean, we really learned a lot. And my God, one of the things that we always harped on technically was it doesn't make a difference what footage you get if you can't hear them. It doesn't make any difference what footage you get if the lens cap is on. It doesn't make any difference. You can't get it together. Your battery isn't charged. You have to get it. And in the other way, it doesn't make any difference how good your equipment is. And if you're there with the mic and the camera rolling, you've got to have an idea about what you're going to shoot. So we learned all of that in that Democratic convention. You know, I mean, it was a gang process, and we learned what works in the gang and what doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
We learned like some people work well together and some people don't. So we had a few weeks to figure all that out, and we learned. You know, we didn't sleep. We learned how much we
could endure.
We were young too. I mean, I couldn't do any of that today. I mean, we're in our 20s. We were bulletproof.
Mm-hmm.
We were totally bulletproof.
Yeah,
I think it happened.
But if you look at especially the early source footage, the cameras are on, you know, for long durations. There'll be many scenes where someone moves into a crowd and it goes nowhere. Then the camera cuts off. Yeah. You know, that the instinct to keep shooting is the greatest thing in the very beginning. As though you'll capture something if you just keep shooting.
Yeah, if you turn it on, it'll happen. Something will happen in front of the camera. Yeah. That you know, that in the early days of only having one tape to shoot back in Sausalito, the ant farm, when we had one tape, we wouldn't leave it on. We were afraid to leave it on. And then as videotape got cheap, we got a source for reel-to-reel half-inch helical scan Sony tape. We got tape with $5 a roll. I think it was degaussed, recycled, made in the backyard of some guy's place tape out of 2-inch tape. We didn't know what it was, but we got this tape. Then the instinct was just to leave it on. Like you said, just leave it on because something will happen. We're going to go to downtown Sausalito today and just leave it on. Something will happen. Somebody will come by. Sure shit, the cop came by and hassled us.
And of course, there's the wonderful, the world's largest bridge.
Oh, the world's longest bridge, yeah.
Longest bridge where you just...
That's my favorite bridge.
Yeah. And that's got like 22 minutes of continuous footage.
Yeah.
But that worked.
Longest bridge, yeah, it is.
Were you in the van on that trip?
Yeah, that was my video. Yeah, that was my idea to do that.
Okay.
Yeah, we were in New Orleans. It goes from New Orleans to Covington, Louisiana. Mm-hmm. And they opened that up when I was a kid to get across the lake. To cross Lake Pontchartrain there, there was a bridge that's way, way away. It used to take like 2.5 hours to get to Covington. And it was a real estate deal that they made. I mean, I know you're shocked to hear that they're crooks in Louisiana. I mean, I know I don't want to shock you, but a bunch of real estate crooks got together and got this bridge built. It's a 2-lane span that went across the Lake Pontchartrain to the place where the real estate crooks had a lot of land. And they said, live on the north shore of Lake Pontchartrain. We got some lots we want to sell you. Get over there. Just take the world's longest bridge.
But the beauty of it for me is that, I don't remember what the exact thing is, but it's like 22 miles and 22 minutes.
Exactly.
So whoever was driving kept it right on 60 miles an hour all the way across.
Michael was driving. I think Doug was driving. I think Doug was driving.
Yeah, okay.
Put the camera on the held the camera, or did I hold the camera?
I think it was just on the dashboard somehow, or maybe wedged.
On the dashboard, yeah. Put it on the dashboard and drive at 60.
Yeah. It worked. So back to TVTV. So after 4 more years, you all come back to San Francisco. Were there discussions about, this worked, let's keep going?
Yeah. We knew that this worked. Where did we want to go from there? We didn't know. We were maybe Michael thought ahead. Maybe Michael did. but I know I didn't. I was pretty much in the moment, and I wanted to get 4 more years. 4 more years also was a technical triumph, because it got half-inch helical scan broadcasts.
Mm-hmm.
Guy at the TV lab at WNET 13 named John Godfrey used a thing called a time-based corrector and figured out how to broadcast half-inch tape. So he was working at that time. So that was a real breakthrough. And it let us and a lot of other people make television where they said you couldn't do that. There was a huge door slammed into small format video. The door slammed in our face to where you couldn't get on television because the equipment we used was substandard. Suddenly it wasn't substandard. So that was a huge, huge event in aesthetics and politics too. It broke down that barrier.
Yeah.
On television, which was enormously important culturally too. So that 4 more years was very important. And plus we had the support of John J. O'Connor in the New York Times, who was a television critic for the time, who absolutely adored TVTV and wrote these columns about us like we were the second coming. I mean, we could do no harm. That we weren't cynical yet. We weren't we were just like we were the saviors of all things in the TV. Blah 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 blah. You read those reviews. You read your own reviews, and you thought, gee, we're really special. But where do we go from here? We had to like debrief after that. We had that show got edited. It was like, it wasn't just like the show got shot and it was over and what do we do next? We had to work at it really hard just to get it over with. And public television was obviously our next step.
So was the Cajun documentary of your doing?
The Cajuns? Well, yes, and Paul Goldsmith. We took Paul Goldsmith and Wendy Apple into TVTV. Mm-hmm. There was a lot of TVTV before that. We did pieces for public television. We did, we did.
Of course, Lord of the Universe.
Lord of the Universe. We did a whole bunch of stuff. But before the Cajun show, we did a bunch of. I can't think of. We did a piece for a thing called Behind the Lines, which was a journalism show on PBS. We did for a piece about Rolling Stone magazine.
Oh yeah, sure.
We did. We did a whole bunch of different stuff, but we were living hand to mouth, kind of trying to figure out what to do. When we got this deal to do documentaries for PBS, through WNET 13, the television lab. Mm-hmm. And we did Lord of the Universe. We did Gerald Ford's America. And we got, then after that, we got Paul and Wendy. And Paul had shot Cajun Mardi Gras, country Mardi Gras, for French television. So he was very familiar with the French Mardi Gras. And I wanted to do French Mardi Gras too. So between Paul and I, we really talked it up and got to go down there, which was a good time. And Rucker really wanted to go too. So we went, and we had some other people from outside TVTV with us. We had a great sound man because it was a lot about sound and music and everything. Great sound man named Peter Liddell, who was a documentary sound man who worked with Goldsmith a lot. And a producer named Rob Kenner, who went with us. We had a great crew, and we lived down with a guy named Dave Myers, who was an amazing documentary cameraman who shot Woodstock.
Yeah, who was a Bay Area guy.
Bay Area guy, yeah. He shot Nanook of the North. I mean, this is a guy who David was like, wow, he was the guy. He was like the most famous documentary cameraman besides Pennebaker that there was. Mm-hmm. Hazel Brothers. He was a god. and a sweetheart of a guy. So David went down there too. And we had a great time.
Yeah, yeah. So any last thoughts about TVTV, the move to LA? How, did that
Well, I
make
was
a
happy.
distinct difference?
I was happy. I was happy to move to LA. I was happy to move to Los Angeles. You know, San Francisco is a very Catholic place. I mean, it's such a. I mean, it is really. At that time, you know, we were there for a long time. We never raised the dime in San Francisco. Nobody ever gave us a break in San Francisco. The public television station always said they were going to help us out. They were going to do this and do this and do that. And what the reality was, they assigned a guy who had some street smarts to us, who talked a big game and was obviously never going to do anything. In other words, we were there banging our heads on against the wall, and nobody ever did a damn thing, and nobody ever gave us a penny. And I realized that, you know, all the money in San Francisco was old money, and those people weren't going to give it up to somebody doing television. I mean, video, you know, guerrilla video. They give it up for a painting, you know,
Yeah,
but they weren't going to give it up for television, I'll tell you that. Whereas in Texas, where they didn't have a grandfather who's going to roll over in their grave, they give it up for anything. They'll try anything. Oh, that's new. Let's do that. You know, San Francisco, no way, no way. So we said goodbye to the Bay Area and went to Los Angeles, where everything's new and you can be whoever you want to be. So we are, you know, and I'm still here. That's been 40 years, 40-something years, 40-something years. But, you know, when I was in the Bay Area, though, I went and did the Cadillac Ranch. And, you know, that was during TVTV days.
Yeah. Did you work on House of the Century?
No, I didn't. No, I did not. We all, you know, did my work on the House of the Century. Chip and Doug did that. Yeah. I mean, the House of the Century came from designs from that we all did together, but Doug refined that down to that design. Yeah, it was Doug and Chip built that out.
So you were with, let's see, Cadillac Ranch was spring '74.
The 74, yeah.
So in the roll up, like in '73 into '74, you were in. You were still in.
I was in TVTV. I was in TVTV, but I had been corresponding with Stanley Marsh, who paid for the Cadillac Ranch. I've been corresponding with Stanley and cooking this project up with Stanley. And Stanley gave me the go-ahead on the Cadillac Ranch in late '73. And it took a while to gather the things and get Doug and Chip involved and gather the cars and do the thing. We did it in June. And so it just took about 6 months to get the project together.
Yeah.
I've been dealing with Stanley for a couple of years.
Had you moved into the space on the Embarcadero at that point, or were you still in Sausalito?
No. When I left Ant Farm, Chip and I, this is kind of confusing. Chip and I, actually, there wasn't any Ant Farm anymore. Ant Farm split up. And Chip and I moved up to Mendocino County. We moved up to Mendocino County in Laytonville, California, up in the mountains by the Hill River. We lived up there in a barn for a year. No electricity, no running. Well, we had running water, and we had a propane stove, but our heat came from one pot-bellied wood stove in an uninsulated barn, and it was cold. Yeah, we both had our girlfriends with us, and we lived up there. We made like weird conceptual weird art, and I went hunting a lot. And we took psychedelic drugs a lot, and lived in nature. I mean, we and Chip went into town once in a while. We went to San Francisco once in a while. You know, we lived there for a long time as
Mhm.
like not Ant Farm. And then Ant Farm kind of got together when Doug had a project. It was House of the Century.
Yeah, yeah.
Chip got together to do House of the Century. When they came back from that, they moved to Embarcadero.
Mhm.
I guess that's
Okay.
how that went. Yeah. And I was living up there when we went to Miami.
Mhm. All right. That I never knew. Yeah. How are you holding up?
Huh? Oh,
How are
my,
you holding?
you know, I don't go out anyway. I don't like going out. I don't go out. So it's kind of the same for me, if that's what you mean by holding up.
Well, in
Now,
yeah.
you know, I read a lot.
Mhm.
I read, I, I, um, I read like 4 newspapers a day. I got a Kindle. I'm a
Mhm.
Kindle guy. I've been Kindling for years. So I read my Kindle every day. I read cheap pulp. I read detective novels.
Uh-huh.
I read literature detective novels, and I read trashy detective novels. I make no distinction between the two.
We
But
should
I read,
talk we should talk crime novels one of these days.
yeah, I read. That's what I read. I read crime. Well, you understand that. I read crime. Yeah, crime. So, yeah, I'm a criminal reader. So, and I just read a great one called The Far West. No, no, I'm sorry, The Far Empty. The Far Empty. The Far Empty. Current Texas, West Texas sheriff. A bad man. He's a bad man. It's a bad man. Anyway, and his deputy,
Mhm.
very bad man too. Anyway, uh,
But up here right now, if you open your front door, uh, you immediately smell fire smoke.
oh yeah, that's right. You guys have got the fucking fire thing going on.
And the closest fire from here is like 30, 40 miles away, but you can smell it everywhere.
I saw that this morning. It's morning's LA Times had a video clip of someone in the Tenderloin looking out at the fire.
Oh, okay. Well, the fires are around Healdsburg and Napa, up around Santa Rosa, you know, up around Vacaville.
Vacaville, I can understand that. But the Hillsburg, you're getting smoke from the Hillsburg.
Uh, it's some of that, yeah. Somewhere like the Vacaville fire, I think
Yeah.
is the closest big one.
Oh man, what a drag, huh? I mean,
Yeah.
look, the fucking the shit will grow back, but the lives lost and the fucking the animals and I live in the city, right? I don't live. I mean, I live in technically I'm in Hollywood, technically, and I live in an old neighborhood of old 20s buildings,
Hmm.
but we're not anywhere near any fire. But
Yeah. Yeah.
the people that my family and stuff, I'm in LA. It's like, oh my God, where the fire's getting you? No, the fires aren't.
Yeah.
But for you guys, in fact, you live in Oakland or Berkeley?
I live in Richmond,
You live in Richmond?
just above Berkeley. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
But
yeah, yeah. You don't want any fires.
so we stay, but it's also you stay indoors. I mean, before the pandemic kept us indoors. Now it's just uh, respiratory problems out
I don't.
there.
I don't have any. I don't have any problem staying indoors because I paint pictures, so I paint pictures and draw. So I don't go out
Mhm.
anyway. I'm at home, so this hasn't been like that much of a stress factor on me. other than, you know, just if I have to go out, I get really stressed. So I don't go out. My wife goes out and she does the shopping. She does that kind of stuff. She brings the mail up. You know, I don't even do that.
Uh-huh.
So, but she's a nurse, and she sees patients. She's a home health nurse.
Oh, okay.
So she goes and but she sees elderly people who are real careful because they know that if they get it, they're dead. And if I get it, I'm dead. If I get it, because I've got COPD, I'm 70, I don't know how old I am, 72 or something like 72. And I have COPD and I'm obese. So I'm dead. So I can't, you know, but I am going to get my hip replaced. I'm going to have a hip replacement replaced.
And a replacement of the replacement?
Yeah, yeah. And it's like it's been put off and been put off and been put off. But it's going to happen in September, the first week of September. And now I'm really scared shitless of that. I'm going to be at Cedars, and I mean, it's been put off so many times, I don't think I can put it off again. But
yeah, yeah. Well, hopefully they'll have the isolation aspect of the hospitals down.
They've got that over there. They've got a, but you know what? Who fucking knows? I mean, all it takes one asshole, you know. And believe me, there are many assholes. Many assholes. Like, who was the asshole who had this camera before me? That asshole. Something happened to this camera. There's something wrong with this camera. When Michael gets it back, he'll find out what was wrong.
Yeah. Well, they're fussy. You know, that's something to me they don't want to own up to. But the process to me is a bit fussy because it took me, I needed help the first couple of times. Now I can kind of do it. But it's something new every time.
It really took it out of me, all this futzing around with this stuff. Hey, that's why Michael is there, but it didn't work.
Yeah, and it isn't exactly plug and play. It's play a lot.
But you know, I read. You know, it's funny. I read all of this stuff, and I got in what I needed to do, so that I had the, you know, orange cable plug, got the AC plugged in, and I got the right plug to plug that in. It just didn't work. What can I say, Steve? It didn't work.
It didn't work. But we still have it recorded.
Yeah, it's recorded. It got done. It got done over Zoom. So what can you say?
Yeah, it'll be integrated into everything. We'll up-res your picture. You know.
Yeah, I should have gotten that up with my appearance.
Right.
When I saw that, I thought that was the funniest thing I saw. Touch up your appearance. Have you ever seen that?
Yeah. They also need advertise your appearance. Yeah.
Oh, really? That's even better. I like that. Instant ad man. Instant ad man. Well, okay, Steve. Good. I'm going to sign off here.
Yeah, and I'll try to send you a couple of links to some of the
okay, that'd be great.
Outtakes.
Yeah. Okay, man. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.